New documents and stories show us something surprising about Jonathan Taylor Thomas. His journey didn't just end with being famous. Instead, it opened doors to learning, staying quiet, and starting fresh. In this video, we're going to share his whole story that most people don't know about. Jonathan Taylor Thomas was born with a different last name, Jonathan Taylor Weiss. He was born on September 8, 1981, in a town called Bethlehem in Pennsylvania. He grew up in a regular family. Nobody in his family was an actor or artist, but Jonathan was really good at being in front of cameras from the very beginning. In 1990, when Jonathan was just a young kid, he got his first small acting job. He appeared on a TV show called The Bradys, where he played a character named Kevin Brady. Kevin was supposed to be the son of Greg Brady. This little role was important because it helped the people who choose actors at ABC notice him. They remembered him. 1 year later, in 1991, a brand new TV show called Home Improvement started. Jonathan Taylor Thomas quickly became one of the most popular young actors on the show. The show became America's favorite sitcom, the most watched comedy show at that time. From 1991 all the way to 1998, Jonathan was in 179 episodes. That's a lot of episodes. He played a character named Randy Taylor. Randy was the middle son in the family. His TV dad was Tim Taylor, who was played by an actor named Tim Allen. Randy was smart, funny, and different from other kids on TV. Because of how great he was, Jonathan became a huge star that teenagers loved. Home Improvement was watched by more than 15 million people every single week. That made Jonathan Taylor Thomas super famous all across America. Everyone knew his name. While he was working on the TV show, Jonathan also tried acting in movies. In 1994, he did voice acting for a Disney movie. He was the voice of young Simba in The Lion King. This movie made more money than any other Disney cartoon at that time. Jonathan's voice was clear and full of energy. Even though people couldn't see his face in the movie, they still remembered his voice and loved it. In 1995, Jonathan starred in a movie called Tom and Huck. This movie was based on a famous book written by Mark Twain a long time ago. The next year, in 1996, he acted in another movie called The Adventures of Pinocchio. He played the character, Pinocchio. 2 years after that, in 1998, Jonathan was in a movie called I'll Be Home for Christmas. This was a movie that teenagers and families both enjoyed watching together. Every single year during this time, Jonathan had a big important project to work on. This proved that he was one of the most wanted young actors in Hollywood. Everyone wanted to work with him. Jonathan Taylor Thomas's face was on the covers of all the popular teen magazines. Magazines like Super Teen, Bop, and Tiger Beat all had his picture. During photo shoots for these magazines, he always smiled nicely and answered questions in a humble way. He didn't brag or act like he was better than other people. This was very unusual for child actors back then. Most kid actors who got famous acted differently, but not Jonathan. Jonathan often talked calmly about how hard it was to be famous. When reporters asked him how he balanced schoolwork with acting work, he said something really thoughtful. He said, "I want to have a little time to do normal things. Go to school and live like any other kid." To the people watching him, this showed he was wiser and more mature than other kids his age. Even though Jonathan had a very busy schedule with acting, he still tried really hard to keep studying and learning. He brought his school books with him to every place where they filmed the show. He even had a private teacher who came to the set to help him with his homework. The people who made Home Improvement remembered that Jonathan was always prepared. He always learned his lines before he had to say them. He showed up on time, never late, and as soon as he finished filming his scenes, he would leave. For a child actor, acting this professional and responsible was really rare. Most kids didn't act this way. From 1994 to 1998, Jonathan joined many events to help promote shows and movies. He went to award shows where famous people got prizes. He appeared as a guest on big TV talk shows that the whole country watched. People in America called him the clean idol. They said he was the perfect example of what an American teenager should be. Smart, polite and well-behaved. But this perfect image made Jonathan feel trapped and stuck. He felt like he couldn't be himself. In the middle of 1998, Home Improvement was getting ready to film its last season. That's when Jonathan Taylor Thomas made a big announcement. He said he was leaving the show. He wanted to finish high school properly, and he was planning to apply to really good universities, the best colleges in America. For all the people who watched the show, this news was shocking and surprising. They didn't expect it at all. But for Jonathan, this wasn't a sudden decision. He had thought about it very carefully and planned it all out. The very last episode of Home Improvement came on TV in 1999. Jonathan wasn't in that episode acting, but his photo appeared at the end of the show as a special tribute. The show wanted to honor him even though he had left. Tim Allen, who played Jonathan's TV dad, said something about him once. He said, "Jonathan doesn't need to prove anything anymore. He's already done enough." That statement ended an amazing chapter in both of their careers, both Jonathan's and Tim's. The 1990s ended with Jonathan Taylor Thomas at the very top of fame. He was both a huge television star and a cultural icon that all teenagers loved. While most other young actors like him kept looking for new roles and new jobs, Jonathan made a different choice. He decided to go against what everyone else was doing. He left Hollywood while he was still super famous and successful. The lights were still shining bright on him, but he walked away anyway. Jonathan understood something important. He understood how heavy and difficult fame could be. He realized that being young and famous couldn't last forever. Youth doesn't last forever, so neither would his type of fame. The decision to leave the show wasn't him giving up. Instead, it was his way of keeping the last little piece of his childhood. After 8 years of living his life between cameras and audiences, he wanted something different. When Jonathan walked away from the TV set, he didn't go looking for a new acting role. Instead, he chose to go to university, to college. That's where his completely different life began. Jonathan Taylor Thomas started studying at Harvard University in the year 2000. Harvard is one of the most famous and hardest universities to get into in America. He chose to study 2 subjects, philosophy and history. Philosophy is about big questions about life and thinking. History is about learning what happened in the past. 2 years later, in 2002, he joined a special exchange program. This program let him study at the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. Scotland is a country far away from America. After his time in Scotland, he moved again. He transferred to Columbia University's School of General Studies. Columbia is another very famous university in New York City. Jonathan graduated from Columbia in 2010. He got outstanding grades, really excellent academic results. This showed that he worked very hard in school. In an interview with a magazine called People, Jonathan explained his decision very clearly. He said, "I had been working non-stop since I was 8 years old. I wanted to go to school, travel, and take a break." This statement showed how serious he was about stepping away from fame and finding a normal rhythm of life. It was like a declaration, an announcement, for his entire 10 years of silence. His time at Harvard opened his mind and expanded his worldview. That means he learned to see the world in bigger, different ways. The year he spent at St. Andrews gave him his first real experience of life far away from Hollywood. At Columbia, he lived quietly in a small student dormitory. A dormitory is a building where college students live. His classmates described him as polite, quiet, and always reading books. Jonathan never tried to get attention. He never introduced himself as a celebrity or famous person. He just acted like a regular student. While studying, Jonathan Taylor Thomas made only a few appearances on television. These were very small and occasional. He appeared on a show called Smallville in 2002. He came back to TV in 2004 to play a character named Ian Randall on a show called 8 Simple Rules. That same year, he also played a character named Jeremy. In 2005, he appeared on Veronica Mars, playing a character named Ben. These small roles were just enough to remind people that he was still part of the acting world. But he wasn't putting his career at the center of his life anymore. Acting wasn't his main focus. Throughout the whole 2000s, that's 10 years, Jonathan said no to almost all interview requests. Reporters and journalists wanted to talk to him, but he declined. He didn't go to special events. He didn't pose for magazine photos. He didn't walk on red carpets at fancy award shows. The media at that time described him as the star who disappeared from Hollywood. But the truth was different. Jonathan wasn't really disappearing. He was simply learning how to live as a regular, ordinary person. After growing up in front of cameras for 10 years, he wanted to know what normal life felt like. Columbia University's official graduation records listed him as Jonathan Weiss. Remember, Weiss was his original last name before he became famous. This confirmed that he completed his college program in 2010. Many students who went to Columbia at the same time remembered him. They said he enjoyed quiet moments. He was often found reading in the library. He never mentioned his years of being famous. By keeping his celebrity identity private and secret, he got to experience student life completely and fully. For almost 10 years, Jonathan chose to live a private life. He had no social media accounts, no Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or anything like that. He made no public statements. Nobody heard from him publicly. He traveled all across Europe, visiting many different countries. He lived simply. He didn't have bodyguards protecting him. He didn't have paparazzi photographers following him around trying to take his picture. When he appeared in public places, he was just another regular person in the crowd. He didn't hide his face or try to avoid cameras in a dramatic way. He just lived normally. The press and reporters often compared Jonathan Taylor Thomas with other child stars from his generation, other kids who got famous at the same time he did. But the path Jonathan chose was completely different and separate from everyone else's. While many former child stars struggled and had problems dealing with their old fame, Jonathan did something else. He devoted himself to learning and gaining knowledge. He stayed away from all the noise and drama. Rejecting the spotlight, saying no to fame, didn't make him disappear. Actually, it set him free. It gave him freedom. By the late 2000s, around 2008 and 2009, rumors started spreading in Hollywood. People were whispering that Jonathan was getting ready for a comeback. Some movie and TV producers revealed that he had reconnected with his former co-stars. He was talking to the people he used to work with again. But nobody knew what his true intention was. What did he really want to do? In every project, Jonathan stayed silent. He let his actions speak for him instead of his words. When many people believed that Jonathan Taylor Thomas had completely abandoned acting and the arts forever, something unexpected happened. He returned, but not in the way people thought. He didn't come back in front of the camera. Instead, he took on an entirely new role that surprised everyone. After almost 10 years away from Hollywood, Jonathan Taylor Thomas came back to television. He returned with a show called Last Man Standing. This was a sitcom, a funny TV show led by Tim Allen. Tim Allen was the same actor who played his TV dad on Home Improvement all those years ago. This was the first time since Home Improvement ended that these two colleagues reunited in the same project. They were working together again. Jonathan's appearance brought a huge wave of nostalgia. Nostalgia means a sentimental feeling about the past. It made audiences who had grown up watching TV in the 1990s feel emotional and happy. In an episode called College Girl that came on TV in 2013, Jonathan played a character named John Baker. John Baker was a bright, gentle college student. The character had Jonathan's familiar sense of humor that people remembered. He came back for more episodes in the 2014 and 2015 seasons. He even did a special appearance playing Randy, his old character from Home Improvement. This was like a special greeting. And hello to all the people who had grown up watching the old show. The reunion of Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Tim Allen got really positive reactions from viewers. People watching described seeing them share the TV screen together as like going back to childhood. It made them feel like kids again. Entertainment websites and magazines noticed that the episode's ratings went up sharply. More people watched because they were excited about his return. The nostalgia surrounding Jonathan's comeback made the show more popular. But Jonathan didn't just act. He also stepped into directing. From 2013 to 2016, he directed 3 different episodes of Last Man Standing. Directing means being in charge of how a TV episode or movie is made. This was a rare transition. Not many former child stars move into behind-the-scenes work successfully. Each episode's credits, the words that show up at the end of the show, clearly displayed the line, "Directed by Jonathan Taylor Thomas." This confirmed his new role officially. In an interview, Tim Allen talked about his longtime collaborator and friend. He shared, "He really wants to direct. He's like a son to me." Their bond and friendship remained strong after so many years. It was built on mutual trust and respect on set. They trusted each other and respected each other's work. Jonathan often watched and observed Tim Allen's filming sessions before he officially took on directing duties himself. He was learning by watching. Jonathan's working process showed the same characteristics he always had. He was calm, disciplined, and private. He arrived on set exactly on time, never late. He discussed things briefly with the crew, the people who work on making the show. Then he left right after finishing his scenes. There were no interviews with reporters, no promotion or advertising, no press conferences where he had to talk to lots of media people. For Jonathan, the focus was always on the work itself, not on his image or how people saw him. The crew members who worked on Last Man Standing remembered specific things about Jonathan. They said he carefully studied every single camera angle. He cared deeply about lighting, how bright or dark things looked on camera. He paid attention to scene rhythm, how fast or slow things moved in each scene. He emphasized natural interaction between actors. He wanted the actors to talk and act together in ways that felt real and believable. Even at a young age when he directed these episodes, Jonathan demonstrated a strong understanding of visual storytelling. Visual storytelling means telling stories through what you see on screen. This was a clear sign that he was someone determined to stay in directing for the long run. He wanted to make this his career. This comeback wasn't about making money or becoming commercially successful. Instead, it was emotional and personal. Jonathan Taylor Thomas chose to appear alongside Tim Allen not because he wanted to reclaim his fame or become famous again. He did it to work in a familiar, comfortable environment, a place where his journey originally began. The reunion reflected his respect for the past and his ongoing desire to keep learning even after years away from the industry. At that time, the press and media described Jonathan as a former star returning in a more mature role. He wasn't a kid anymore. He had grown up. The few articles that mentioned him all noted the same things. They said he had steady composure. He stayed calm and collected. They mentioned his humility. He stayed humble and modest. They noticed his distance from controversy. He stayed away from drama and problems. Jonathan reappeared, did his work, then quietly stepped away again. He left a brief but lasting mark on people's memories. In 2016, after he completed directing his final episode, Jonathan Taylor Thomas once again withdrew from television. He went silent. He returned to his private life just like he had done for more than 10 years before. That silence had become so familiar that it was almost like his signature. It was just what people expected from him. Looking back at this period, we can see something important. Jonathan Taylor Thomas wasn't merely a former star trying to survive on old memories. He wasn't just living in the past. Instead, he was someone quietly redefining his place in the industry. He was figuring out where he fit in the entertainment world now. He stepped from in front of the camera to behind it. He became a storyteller in a new way. He continued his journey in making movies and TV, but on his own terms, doing it the way he wanted. After the studio doors closed behind him, Jonathan Taylor Thomas retreated into private life once again. This time, he chose to contribute to the artistic community in a different way. He wanted to help from behind the scenes. Since 2017, Jonathan Taylor Thomas has almost completely vanished from the public eye. He became nearly invisible to most people. He was spotted, meaning people saw him, only a few times in Los Angeles. Once in 2017, someone saw him while he was shopping in a store. Then again in 2021, somebody spotted him walking his dog around the Hollywood area. These sightings were so rare that people talked about them. On November 29, 2023, entertainment news outlets published photos of Jonathan in Southern California. In the pictures, he was wearing a gray hoodie and holding a cup of coffee. He looked calm and peaceful. He was alone as he walked down the sidewalk. The images spread quickly across the internet because they were so rare. People treated these photos as proof that he still lived in California. Fans who saw the pictures noticed that Jonathan had changed very little over all these years. He still had the same calm, simple way about him. He still kept a clear distance from crowds and attention. At the same time that he was living privately, Jonathan was actively involved with an organization called SAG-AFTRA. SAG-AFTRA is the union that represents actors and entertainment professionals. A union is a group that protects workers' rights. Jonathan was elected to the National Board in 2017. A board is a group of leaders who make important decisions. He ran for the position again in 2019, alongside other famous actors like Ed Asner and Elliot Gould. In 2023, he received nearly 44% of the votes in the election. That's a really good amount, almost half of all votes. He continued to serve as a board member. Union records confirm that his name has appeared consistently from 2017 until now. He keeps showing up and doing the work. Jonathan Taylor Thomas's presence on the board has rarely been covered by the media. Reporters don't write about it much. But within the entertainment industry, people see it as a clear sign. It shows that he remains quietly engaged with the profession. He still cares about acting and entertainment work, even if he's not on TV. His involvement in union leadership reflects his concern for his colleagues' rights. He cares about making sure actors are treated fairly. This was especially important during the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike. A strike is when workers refuse to work until their demands are met. Even though Jonathan has this executive position, an important leadership job, he never speaks publicly about it. There are no press conferences where he talks to reporters. There are no interviews about his role. He stays quiet about his work. Still, several board members confirm that he attends all meetings. He shows up. He maintains a calm, respectful, and pragmatic approach when discussing important topics. Pragmatic means practical and realistic. When talking about the rights of young actors, he takes things seriously and thinks practically about solutions. Alongside his union work, Jonathan continues to live privately. He still doesn't use social media. He doesn't have Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, or any other accounts. He doesn't participate in any public campaigns or causes that would put him in the spotlight. Every news story written about him begins with the phrase "was seen." This reflects just how rare each appearance has become. Just seeing him is newsworthy because it happens so rarely. Regarding his personal life and relationships, Jonathan Taylor Thomas has never gone public with any romantic relationship. He's never introduced a girlfriend or boyfriend to the public. Rumors spread in the early 2000s that he was engaged to a woman named Natalie Wright. Engagement means planning to get married. But these rumors were never confirmed. Nobody knows if they were true. There is no evidence that Jonathan got married or has children. When reporters have asked him about relationships, he simply replied with a short answer. He said, "I have no regrets. I enjoy my privacy." That statement clearly expresses his outlook on life and how he sees things. He lives independently of fame. He doesn't need to prove his existence through media attention. He doesn't feel like he has to show people he exists by being on TV or in magazines. Journalists and reporters describe him as a man who figured out how to step away from the Hollywood system while still earning respect from the public. He found a way to leave fame behind but keep people's admiration and respect. Now in his 40s, Jonathan Taylor Thomas still lives in Los Angeles. He lives far from noise and attention. He's not bothered by paparazzi or fans mobbing him. People who have actually met him in person describe him as simple in his lifestyle. He's often seen walking around normally. He speaks gently to people. He never avoids being recognized. If someone recognizes him and says hello, he doesn't run away or hide. He continues his private work. He might be writing scripts for movies or TV shows. He might be reading lots of books. He might be participating in nonprofit projects that help people, but without any publicity or attention. This period marks the image of a mature and quietly steady Jonathan Taylor Thomas. He's grown into a calm, stable adult. He's someone who remains influential and important even without being visible on TV or in movies. His influence comes from who he is, not from being on camera. Jonathan has proven something valuable. He's shown that fame can endure, can last, even when someone withdraws from public life. You can still be respected and remembered even if you step away. As long as you live in a way that preserves the trust of people who once admired you, that connection stays strong. And then, something surprising happened. After nearly 8 years of hiding away from everything, Jonathan suddenly appeared in a place no one expected. He showed up on the set with the man who had been by his side since his teenage years, Tim Allen. On September 8, 2024, a magazine called People published an article. The article was celebrating Jonathan Taylor Thomas's 43rd birthday. The piece described him as still living a peaceful, quiet life. He had been absent from television and film for many years. IMDb Pro is a website that tracks actors' work. It also confirmed that Jonathan hadn't had any acting projects since 2016. That was 8 years without any new roles. This information made many people believe he would stay in seclusion forever. They thought he would never come back to acting or Hollywood. But then, a small event in early 2025 suddenly drew media attention. It got reporters and fans excited. Kat Dennings is an actress. She shared something on social media that got everyone talking. She said she freaked out when she saw Jonathan on the set of Shifting Gears. Shifting Gears is a new sitcom, a new comedy show, led by Tim Allen. Photos appeared showing Jonathan Taylor Thomas talking with Tim Allen on the set. The two faces that were once linked together by home improvement were reunited. This was nearly 3 decades later, almost 30 years after they worked together. The modest, simple encounter instantly became a trending topic. Everyone on nostalgia forums, websites where people talk about old TV shows and memories, started discussing it excitedly. In a later interview, Tim Allen confirmed what happened. He explained that Jonathan had only visited the set. He wasn't there to film anything or act. He just came to visit. Tim Allen said about him, "He's the same as ever. If one day he decides to come back, the door is always open." His words recalled and reminded everyone of the special bond between them. It reignited hope, made people hopeful again, for an on-screen reunion. People started wondering if maybe Jonathan and Tim would work together again in a real way. There was no official statement from Jonathan Taylor Thomas after the visit. He didn't release any announcement or talk to reporters about why he visited. But for audiences and fans, his simple presence was enough. Just him being there proved that he still felt connected to the people who helped him create one of television's golden eras. He still cared about those relationships from his past. Several news outlets and entertainment websites reported that Jonathan visited the Shifting Gears set merely to congratulate Tim Allen. Tim Allen had long considered Jonathan like a son, so the visit made sense as a friendly gesture. Still, many people interpreted it differently. They saw it as a hint of a possible future collaboration. Maybe Jonathan would do a cameo, a small appearance, on the show. Whatever the real reason was, the image of their meeting brought a rare sense of warmth and authenticity. Authenticity means realness and genuineness. It felt special and real, not fake or staged for publicity. Nearly 30 years after Home Improvement ended, Jonathan remains a symbol of graceful withdrawal. He represents stepping away with dignity and grace. He never allowed himself to be pulled into half-hearted comebacks. He never did mediocre projects just to stay relevant or get attention. He never used the past to desperately stay in the spotlight. Instead, he chose a quiet life. He appears only occasionally, once in a while, just to remind fans that he's still around. He's still alive, still himself, still out there somewhere. The brief reappearance in 2025 was more than just a nostalgic moment. It was more than people just remembering the good old days. It was proof of something bigger. It proved that an artist can endure, can last and remain important, through silence. You don't have to be loud and constantly visible to matter. Jonathan no longer needs to return to prove his worth. He doesn't have to act again to show people he was valuable. His choices themselves have made audiences remember him in their own special way. People remember him as sincere, humble, and admirable. Those qualities last longer than any TV show or movie. Jonathan Taylor Thomas's story does not end with a grand, dramatic comeback. Instead, it ends with deliberate quiet, silence that he chose on purpose. He was once a symbol of the 1990s. He was the voice of Simba that kids loved. He was the beloved Randy Taylor that American families watched on television every week. As of 2025, Jonathan Taylor Thomas's estimated net worth, how much money he has, ranges between $12 and $20 million. That's a huge amount of money. Most of it came from his time as a top television star on Home Improvement, and from being the voice of young Simba in The Lion King. After stepping away from Hollywood, Jonathan made smart financial decisions. He invested in California real estate. Real estate means buying property and land. He bought a home in Westlake Village in the year 2000. Later, he sold that house for nearly $2 million. That's a big profit. Part of his income also comes from his directing work. When he directed episodes of Last Man Standing, he got paid for that. He also made small investments in creative and technology ventures. Ventures means business projects. Though he no longer appears publicly, he maintains stable finances. His money situation is secure and steady. He did this through careful decisions and by living a modest lifestyle. Modest means not spending too much, not living too flashy or expensive. Today, Jonathan lives at his own pace. He lives the way he wants to, far from fame, but still holding the deep respect of his audience. People still respect and admire him even though they don't see him on TV. His journey proves something powerful. It shows that some stars do not need the spotlight to radiate influence. They don't need to be on camera or in magazines to still matter to people. Sometimes, silence itself speaks louder than anything. His silence speaks about the strength of someone who grew up in the glow of fame but found the wisdom to walk away. If you once watched Home Improvement or remember the voice of Simba from The Lion King, think about Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think he should return to the screen? Should he act again? Or is it better that he stays private? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. That way, you won't miss more stories about the stars who shaped our childhood, the actors and actresses who made our growing up years special.